welcome to Miss Rose's Storytime, where I'm still in The Outsiders, and I'm on Chapter 7 for Mrs Karen Moxley's class. I believe the class is finished, but I want to finish. I was a little bit under the weather a couple weeks ago, and so I want to be able to be faithful and finish. So in Chapter 7, The Outsiders, by S.E. Hinton. Now there were 3 of us sitting in the waiting room, waiting to hear how Dally and Johnny were. Then the reporters and the police came. They asked too many questions too fast and got me mixed up. If you want to know the truth, I wasn't feeling real good in the first place. Kind of sick, really. And I'm scared of policemen anyway. The reporters fired one question right after another at me and got me so confused. I didn't know what was coming off. Derry finally told them I wasn't in any place to be yelled at so much, and they slowed down a little. Derry's kind of big. Soda Pop kept them in stitches. He'd grab one guy's press hat and another camera and walk around interviewing the nurses and mimicking TV reporters. He tried to lift a policeman's gun and grinned so crazily when he was caught that the policeman had to grin too. Soda can make anyone grin. I managed to get hold of some hair grease and comb my hair back so that it looked a little better before they got any pictures. I'd die if I got my picture in the paper with my hair looking so lousy. Derry and Soda Pop were in the pictures too. Jerry would told me that if Soda Pop and Derry hadn't been so good looking, they wouldn't have taken so many. That was public appeal, he said. Soda was really getting a kick out of all of this. I guess he would have enjoyed it more if it hadn't been so serious. But he couldn't resist anything that caused that much excitement, I swear. Sometimes he reminds me of a colt, a long-legged Palomino colt that has to get his nose into everything. The reporters stared at him admiringly. I told you he looks like a movie star, and he kind of radiates. Finally, even Soda Pop got tired of the reporters. He gets bored with the same old thing after a time. And stretching out on the long bench, he put his head in Dari's lap and went to sleep. I guess both of them were tired. It was late at night, and I knew they hadn't had much sleep during the week. Even while I was answering questions, I remembered that it had been only a few hours since I was sleeping off a smoke in the corner of the church. Already it was an unreal dream, and yet at the time I couldn't have imagined any other world. Finally, the reporters started to leave, along with the police. One of them turned and asked, "What would you do right now if you could do anything you wanted?" I looked at him tiredly. Take a bath. They thought that was pretty funny, but I meant it. I felt lousy. The hospital got real quiet after they left. The only noise was the nurse's soft footsteps and Soda's light breathing. Derry looked down at him and grinned half-heartedly. He didn't get much sleep this week, he said softly. He hardly slept at all. Soda said drowsily. You didn't either. The nurses wouldn't tell us anything about Johnny and Dally, so Derry got hold of the doctor. The doctor told us that he would talk only to the family, but Derry finally got it through to the guy's head that we were about as much family as Dally and Johnny had. Dally would be okay after 2 or 3 days in the hospital, he said. One arm was badly burned and would be scarred for the rest of his life, but he would have full use of it in a couple of weeks. Dally'll be okay, I thought. Dallas is always okay. He could take anything. It was Johnny I was worried about. He was in critical condition. His back had been broken when that piece of timber fell on him. He was in severe shock and suffering from third-degree burns. They were doing everything they could to ease the pain, although since his back was broken, he couldn't even feel the burns below his waist. He kept calling for Dallas and Ponyboy if he lived, if. Please, no, I thought, please not if. The blood was draining from my face, and Derry put an arm across my shoulder and squeezed hard. Even if he lived, he'd be crippled for the rest of his life. You wanted it straight, and you got it straight, the doctor said. Now go home and get some rest. I was trembling. A pain was growing in my throat, and I wanted to cry, but greasers don't cry in front of strangers. Some of us never cry at all, like Dally and Two-Bit and Tim Shepherd. They forgot how at an early age. Johnny crippled for life? I'm dreaming. I thought in panic. I'm dreaming. I'll wake up at home or in the church and everything'll be like it used to be. But I didn't believe myself. Even if Johnny did live, he'd be crippled and never play football or help us out in the rumble again. He'd have to stay in that house he hated, where he wasn't wanted, and things could never be like they used to be. I didn't trust myself to speak. If I said one word, the hard knot in my throat would swell and I'd be crying in spite of myself. I took a deep breath and kept my mouth shut. Soda was awake by then, and although he looked stony-faced, as if he hadn't heard a word the doctor had said, his eyes were bleak and stunned. Serious reality has a hard time coming through to Soda, but when it does, it hits him hard. He looked like I felt when I had seen that black-haired Soch lying doubled up and still in the moonlight. Dari was rubbing the back of my head softly. We'd better go home. We can't do anything here. In our Ford, I was suddenly overcome by sleepiness. I leaned back and closed my eyes, and we were home before I knew it. Soda was shaking me gently. Hey, Ponyboy, wake up. You still got to get to the house. I said sleepily, and lay down in the seat. I couldn't have gotten up to save my life. I could hear Soda and Dari, but as if from a great distance. Oh, come on, Ponyboy, Soda pleaded, shaking me a little harder. We're sleepy, too. I guess Dari was tired of fooling around, because he picked me up and carried me in. He's getting mighty big to be carried, Soda said. I wanted to tell him to shut up and let me sleep, but I only yawned. He sure lost a lot of weight, Dari said. I thought sleepily that I should at least pull off my shoes, but I didn't. I went to sleep the minute Dari tossed me on the bed. I'd forgotten how soft a bed really was. I was the first one up the next morning. Soda must have pulled my shoes and shirt off of me. I was still wearing my jeans. He must have been too sleepy to undress himself, though. He lay stretched out beside me, fully clothed. I wiggled out from under his arm and pulled the blanket up over him, then went to take a shower. Asleep, he looked a lot younger than going on 17, but I had noticed that Johnny looked younger when he was asleep, too, so I figured everyone did. Maybe people are younger when they are asleep. After my shower, I put on some clean clothes and spent 5 minutes or so hunting for a hint of a beard on my face and mourning over my hair. That bum haircut made my ears stick out. Dari was still asleep when I went into the kitchen to fix breakfast. The first one up has to fix breakfast and the other two do the dishes. That's the rule around our house. And usually it's Dari who fixes breakfast and me and Soda who are left to do the dishes. I hunted through the icebox and found some eggs. We all like our eggs done differently. I like them hard, Dari likes them in a bacon and tomato sandwich, and Soda Pop eats his with grape jelly. All three of us like chocolate cake for breakfast. Mom had never allowed it with ham and eggs, but Dari let Soda and me talk him into it. We really didn't have to twist his arm. Dari loves chocolate cake as much as we do. Soda Pop always makes sure there's some in the icebox every night, and if there isn't, he cooks one up real quick. I like Dari's cakes better. Soda Pop always puts too much sugar in the icing. I don't see how he stands jelly and eggs and chocolate cake all at once, but he seems to like it. Dari drinks black coffee and Soda Pop and I drink chocolate milk. We could have coffee if we wanted it, but we like chocolate milk. All three of us are crazy about chocolate stuff. Soda says if they ever made a chocolate cigarette, I'll have to have it made. Anybody home? A familiar voice called through the front screen, and 2-Bit and Steve came in. We always just stick our heads into each other's houses and holler, hey, and walk in. Our front door is always unlocked in case one of the boys is hacked off at his parents' and needs a place to lay over and cool off. We never could tell who we'd find stretched out on the sofa in the morning. It was usually Steve, whose father told him about once a week to get out and never come back. It kind of bugs Steve, even if his old man does give him $5 or $6 the next day to make up for it. Or it might be Dally, who lived anywhere he could. Once we even found Tim Shepherd, leader of the Shepherd gang, and far from his own turf, reading the morning paper in the armchair. He merely looked up and said, hi, and strolled out without staying for breakfast. 2-Bit's mother warned us about burglars, but Dari, flexing his muscles so that they might bulge like oversized baseballs, drawled that he wasn't afraid of any burglars and that we didn't really have anything worth taking. He'd risk a robbery, he said, if it meant keeping one of the boys from blowing up and robbing a gas station or something. So the door was never locked. I'm here, I yelled, forgetting that Dari and Soda Pop were still asleep. Don't slam the door. They slammed the door, of course, and 2-Bit came running into the kitchen. He caught me by the upper arms and swung me around, ignoring the fact that I had 2 uncooked eggs in my hand. Hey, Pony Boy, he cried gleefully. Long time no see. You would have thought it had been 5 years instead of 5 days since I'd seen him last, but I didn't mind. I like old 2-Bit. He's a good buddy to have. He spun me into Steve, who gave me a playful slap on my bruised back and shoved me across the room. One of the eggs went flying. It landed on the clock, and I tightened my grip on the other one so that it crushed and ran all over my hand. Now look what you did, I griped. There went our breakfast. Can't you 2 wait till I set the eggs down before you go shoving me all over the country? I really was a little mad because I had just realized how long it had been since I'd eaten anything. The last thing I'd eaten was a hot fudge sundae at Dairy Queen in Windruxville, and I was hungry. 2-Bit was walking in a slow circle around me, and I sighed because I knew what was coming. Man, dig Baldy here. He was staring at my head as he circled me. I wouldn't have believed it. I thought all the wild Indians in Oklahoma had been tamed. What little squaw's got the tough-looking mop of yours, Pony Boy? Aw, lay off, I said. I wasn't feeling too good in the first place, kind of like I was coming down with something. 2-Bit winked at Steve, and Steve said, Why, he had to get a haircut to get his picture in the paper. They never believe a greasy-looking mug could be a hero. How do you like being a hero, Big Shot? How do I like what? Being a hero, you know. He shoved the morning paper at me impatiently, like a big shot even. I stared at the newspaper. Oh, the front page of the second section was the headline, Juvenile Delinquents Turn Heroes. What I like is that turn bit, 2-bit said, cleaning the egg off the floor. Y'all were heroes from the beginning. You just didn't turn all of a sudden. I hardly heard him. I was reading the paper. That whole page was covered with stories about us. The fight, the murder, the church burning, the socias being drunk. Everything my picture was there. With Dari and Soda Pop, the article told how Johnny and I had to risk our lives saving those little kids, and there was a comment from one of the papers who said, one of the parents, who said that they could all have burned to death if it hadn't been for us. It told the whole story of our fight with the socias, only they didn't say socias because most grown-ups don't know about the battles that go on between us. They had interviewed Sherry Valance, and she said Bob had been drunk and that the boys had been looking for a fight when they took her home. Bob had told her he'd fix us for picking up his girl. His buddy Randy Anderson, who had helped jump us, also said it was their fault and that we'd only fought back in self-defense. But they were charging Johnny with manslaughter. Then I discovered that I was supposed to appear at juvenile court for running away, and Johnny was too, if he recovered. Not if, I thought again. Why do they keep saying if? For once there weren't any charges against Daly, and I knew he'd be mad because the paper made him out a hero for saving Johnny and didn't say much about his police record, which he had kind of proud of. He'd kill those reporters if he got hold of them. There was another column about just Dari and Soda and me, how Dari worked on 2 jobs at once and made good at both of them, about his outstanding record at school. It mentioned Soda Pop dropping out of school so we could stay together, and that I made the honor roll at school all the time and might be a future track star. Oh yeah, I forgot. I am on the A squad track team, the youngest one. I'm a good runner. It said we wouldn't be separated after we had worked so hard to stay together. The meaning of that last line finally hit me. You mean, I swallowed hard, that they're thinking about putting me and Soda in a boys' home or something? Steve was carefully combing back his hair in complicated swirls. Something like that. I sat down in daze. We couldn't get hauled off now. Not after me and Dari had finally got through to each other, and now that the big rumble was coming up and we would settle this social greaser thing once and for all. Not now, when Johnny needed us and Daly was still in the hospital and wouldn't be out for the rumble. No, I said out loud, and 2-bit, who was scraping the eggs off the clock, turned to stare at me. No what? No, they ain't gonna to put us in a boys' home. Don't worry about it, Steve said. Corkscrew that he and Soda Pop could handle anything that came, that he and Soda Pop could handle anything that came up. They don't do things like that to heroes. We're Soda and Superman. That was as far as it got, because Dari, shaved and dressed, came in behind Steve and lifted him up off the floor, then dropped him. We all called Dari Superman. or muscles at one time or another. But one time Steve made the mistake of referring to him as all brawn and no brain, and Dari almost shattered Steve's jaw. Steve didn't call him that again, but Dari never forgave him. Dari has never really gotten over not going to college. That was the only time I've ever seen Soda mad at Steve. Although Soda attaches no importance to education. School bored him, no action. Soda came running in. "Where's the blue shirt I washed yesterday?" He took a swig of chocolate milk out of the container. "Hate to tell you, buddy," Steve said, still flat on the floor, "but you have to wear clothes to work. There's a law or something." "Oh yeah," Soda said. "Where's those wheat jeans, too?" "I ironed them they're in the closet," Dari said. "Hurry up, you're going to be late." Soda ran back, muttering, I'm hurrying. Steve followed him, and in a second there was the general racket of a pillow fight. I absent-mindedly watched Dari as he searched the icebox for chocolate cake. "Dari," I said suddenly, "did you know about the juvenile court?" Without turning to look at me, he said, "Yeah, the cops told me last night." I knew then that he realized we might get separated. I didn't want to worry him anymore, but I said, "I had one of those dreams last night, the one I can't ever remember." Dari spun around to face me, genuine fear on his face. "What?" "I had a nightmare the night of Mom and Dad's funeral. I'd had nightmares and wild dreams every once in a while when I was little, but nothing like this one. I woke up screaming bloody murder, and I never could remember what it was that had scared me. It scared Soda Pop and Dari almost as bad as it scared me. For night after night, for weeks on end, I would dream this dream and wake up in a cold sweat or screaming, and I never could remember exactly what happened in it. Soda began sleeping with me, and it stopped recurring so often, but it happened often enough for Dari to take me to a doctor. The doctor said I had too much imagination. He had a simple cure, too. Study harder, read more, draw more, and play football more. After a hard game of football and 4 or 5 hours of reading, I was too exhausted mentally and physically to dream anything. But Dari never got over it. And every once in a while he would ask me if I dreamed anymore. "Was it very bad?" Two-Bit questioned. He knew the whole story, and having never dreamed about anything but blondes, he was interested. "No," I lied. I had awakened in a cold sweat and shivering, but Soda was dead into the world. I had just wiggled closer to him and stayed awake for a couple of hours, trembling under his arm. That dream always scared the heck out of me. Dari started to say something, but before he could begin, Soda Pop and Steve came in. "You know what?" Soda said to no one in particular. "When we stomp the Sochies good, me and Steve here are gonna throw a big party, and everybody can get stoned. Then we'll go chase the Sochies clear to Mexico." "Where you gonna get the dough, little man?" Dari had found the cake and was handing out pieces. "I'll think of something," Soda Pop assured him between bites. "You gonna take Sandy to the party?" I asked, just to be saying something. Instant silence. I looked around. "What's the deal?" Soda Pop was staring at his feet, but his ears were reddening. "No, she went to live with her grandmother in Florida." "How come?" "Look," Steve said, surprisingly angry. "Does he have to draw you a picture? It was either that or get married, and her parents almost hit the roof at the idea of her marrying a 16-year-old kid. 17, Soda said softly. I'll be 17 in a couple weeks. Oh, I said, embarrassed. Soda was no innocent. I had been in on bull sessions, and his bragging was as loud as anyone's, but never about Sandy. Not ever about Sandy. I remembered how her blue eyes had glowed when she looked at him, and I was sorry for her. There was a heavy silence. Then Dari said, "We'd better get on to work. Pepsi-Cola." Dari rarely called Soda by Dad's pet nickname for him, but he did so then because he knew how miserable Soda Pop was about Sandy. "I hate to leave you here by yourself, Pony Boy," Dari said slowly. "Maybe I ought to take the day off. I've stayed by my lonesome before. You can't afford a day off." "Yeah, but you just got back and I really ought to stay." "I'll babysit him," Two-Bit said, ducking as I took a swing at him. "I haven't got anything better